Hi, I'm Sarah and welcome to CoreMoodz. Today I'll be talking to you about modern classic books. Having looked at the books that I chose to read in 2025, I found that I didn't read any modern classics, and I usually really enjoy modern classics books, but I haven't been reading them the last few years. I looked in my TBR and I chose a few, and I was like, let me just start 2026 reading a few of the oldest books on my TBR that are modern classic books. The first book I chose is The Blind Owl by Sadegh, and all I know about this book is that it's about isolation and some kind of a mental journey. I'm very interested in this book. The next book is The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Le Guin. I have read from Ursula Le Guin before, but I've read from her fantasy. I've read a few of the Earthsea books, I think the first 3 or 4, and I think it's very interesting when an author writes sci-fi and fantasy. And I've heard of the title, The Left Hand of Darkness, for a really long time. All I know is that gender is a very important theme in the books, so I really want to tackle The Left Hand of Darkness. The next book that I want to tackle is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. It's a book that I should have read by now, but I didn't. So I just want to read it, and I just wanted a little bit of a lighter book in between the heavier books that I want to read. The fourth book is Beloved by Toni Morrison, and I've read from Toni Morrison before. I've read The Bluest Eye, and I think I have a couple of her other books. I don't really know what Beloved is about. I just know that a lot of people have told me it's a really sad book, and you have to be like emotionally ready to want to tackle it. A little bit intimidated, but I think Toni Morrison is an amazing author, so it's going to be a very insightful and interesting read. The next book that I want to read, also a book I heard that it's very sad, is No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai. All I know is that about a journey to communicate or connect with society. I'm not sure, they feel like they don't fit in a certain way. I just know it's very sad. The last book is Things Fall Apart by Chinua, Achebe, and all I know is about community, and it's about societal expectations. It's an author that I've heard a lot about, and I've heard this title before. I've never read from them before. I just know they're very well-known, recognized African author, and this book has been on my TBR for a long time, so I was like, let me just read it. I picked a couple of different books. Let's see how it went. I started Beloved. I think I'm 20% into it. I don't know if reading this book was a good idea to start the year, because it's so heavy and so intense and so much pain. The story starts on a plantation called Sweet Home, and the plantation is owned by a couple. They bring in this young girl, Sadegh. The husband passes away. The wife is older, and Sadegh is helping her, and everyone is helping her find someone to help her run the plantation. This person is a cruel person, someone focused on making money, hurting people, and he has a little bit of a sadistic way of solving problems, if that is what he thinks he's doing. He's really rough, he's really hard, and he brings in more people like him. So the atmosphere in this plantation changes. Sadegh, she's at this time, she has children. She decides, while she's pregnant, she decides to just pick up and leave. And at the time, you could, as a slave, run to a place where you could be safe. But there was a law enacted that slave owners could go beyond the perimeter of there was a law, I don't remember what it's called, but there was some kind of law passed around that time that slave owners can go and get their slaves. This person that this woman handed her plantation to run finds Sadegh and the children, and on with the news that Sadegh receives that they're going to be captured again, she decides to do something really horrible and terrible and something traumatizing both to herself and to her children. And that part, I just needed to step away. The thing that really made me feel, the story by itself is already very, very complex, very sad, very horrible, unhuman way this woman and people from African descent have been treated and are treated. This is based on a true story. This story is a real story. The traumatic event that is, I'm not going to mention. So this is where I am. I'm going to continue reading, and I think I'm just going to slow down and let myself take in this book at its pace. I need to do something. I think I'm going to color or something while I'm reading, so I can still pay attention to the audiobook. I have the physical book somewhere, but I just don't feel like, if I read with my eyes, I just feel like I'm just gonna block a lot of it out. I think I'm just gonna color and listen to the book, because the version I have is narrated by Toni Morrison herself. So that's why I want to listen to the audiobook. I'm just gonna listen to it on a slow speed and just take in the story. And just, if I need a moment and I need to pause, I'm just gonna do that. Because I feel like some books you can read like there are popcorn, just fun and fast ride, but some books you need to just you need to experience. You need you need to mentally and just feel it and take it in, because that's what the author intended. So I'm just going to slow down. I usually read really fast, so I'm just going to slow down and let this book do what it was intended to. I am further into the book. I'm not the type of person that cries. I would cry when I watch movies, and sometimes I have cried before when I saw a beautiful painting. I had a moment once in my life, but I usually don't cry when it comes to music or books. But I just feel the tears coming up. So I'm just trying to hold back. This book is the writing is so beautiful and so intentional and so well placed. And it's like the author is telling you, listen to this story. You have to pay attention. You have to stand still and just take a moment and listen to this. This is how life was. Very impactful. Just where I am at the story, there's an important person, a mysterious person has been introduced. The way they're interacting with the family is very interesting, and it has consequences. The family dynamic is very interesting, and the addition of the new person is also very interesting. I feel like this book is like centered around trauma, is centered around pain, around grief, around loss. The narration of the audiobook is also amazing and also very heavy, and gives weight to the words. So it's really bad. I don't know how to say this. I'm enjoying this, but this is not a book you enjoy. This is a book you experience and you just connect with and just understand and try to empathize. And so I feel like, yeah, I'm glad I'm reading this book, even though it's like very heavy. So if you ever want to pick up this book, I would suggest you pick it up at a time where you think you're a little bit more stable. You have the capacity to handle whatever this book is gonna trigger. It's very hard to read, even though it's beautiful and it's very authentic and real, and it says something about a period of time where something like this did happen. So it's like very insightful. I think I might watch the movie if I can handle it, but I'll wait until I finish the book. I finished Beloved, and that was an intense book. I talked about it with a friend. Slavery was a horrible time, horrible in every way. The impact on the Black family structure, the mother's relationship with her children. I think I didn't stand still and think about that in a very deep way before. If you generally think slavery is bad, when you go into the nitty-gritty and try to analyze each relationship and each dynamic, there's a new horror to discover. The way this book went on, I think it was really interesting. I loved the haunting atmosphere. And the way it ends is also very sad, because you wish Sadegh a better outcome. But it's really hard, because is that possible after everything that she went through? A very intense, very deep book. I think Toni Morrison is an amazing author, and I think I'm going to read more from her. But I think I need to when I pick up a book by her, just set time aside and just focus on it and just take it page by page. The way she writes is very, very deliberate. She knows what she is writing about. She knows where she wants to begin, where she wants to end, her prose, and I was very impressed, even though I've read from her before. It's been years, so I think it was a good thing to pick up this book. I started Ursula Le Guin's The Left Hand of Darkness, and so far it's very interesting, because it starts with a character he's sent as a representative with a mission to bring this other country just to make the other country work with his country, so then they can share resources and stuff. The arrogance, the single-mindedness he goes into his contacts, the way he is out of his depth and trying to understand. His way of thinking is very, very narrow-minded. Oh, sorry, I needed to stop because my cat was using the litter box. Where was I? The main character gets introduced to those other people from this other country, and they are biologically different. He is very perplexed by the way they live, by the flexibility, by the fluidity, by the open-mindedness. He's like very much in shock. It's very interesting to see him understand and try to adjust to his situation. I'm just gonna keep on reading, and I'll update when I'm a little further into the book. I'm a little further into The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Le Guin. It's very interesting so far, because we started this story with this man getting an audience with the king of this country. And while in the beginning I thought, it's just someone from one country trying to go to another country to bring this other country into a union, some kind of a trade union or something. But that's not what this is. We're talking about planets, interplanetary travel and stuff. It's like this person comes from a different planet, and the planet system and the union or something he's from, it's like a lot of different planets under this organized working together agreement thing where they like share things, they communicate, they trade. So it's like if you watch Dune. So they're trying to bring this planet that they discovered and they've been observing for a really long time. They're trying to bring the people on this planet, make them accept and make them work with them and come into the fold. On this planet, there are two different people. The king that this envoy is meeting with is a king of one of the people. A lot of things happen. Things go left. Treason. All of a sudden, the envoy is on this journey and he is on his own because in the beginning he thought he was communicating with someone. Things didn't go as planned. So now he's by himself. And he's trying to understand the world, understand how he can achieve his mission. On the one side, he's being very judgmental. On the other side, a lot of the things are things he never even thought about. And the way the people live, their biology, their culture, their gender expression, everything is completely different than what he's used to. The story continues, and then there's a lot more other stuff that happens. I honestly just think that someone that is an envoy, that I don't know if he has done this kind of work before, if there was like another mission he was a part of, or what kind of knowledge he got and how he came to this position, what kind of training and stuff, because I feel like he's a little bit clueless. He's just doing things and being shocked and not understanding how things didn't go his way and things go from bad to worse to worse to worse. There's someone trying to help, but I just think it's very interesting who people choose to trust and who people choose to ignore. I think to me the most interesting part is his inner thoughts and his shock at when he has interactions with the people of this planet. I think it's very interesting that he's like, even though he knows, because he knows about other planets and other kind of people, he's still shocked at, how did this happen? Or centering his own experience and seeing the experience of the people on this planet as the other. But I also thought was interesting is how the people perceive him, because he has like a specific way he looks, specific biology, skin color, shape. And I think it's like very interesting that the people on the planet also look at him as, oh, he's weird, he's different. The people on the planet, they change gender, so they can they have different phases and they can transition from gender to gender. So I think it's very interesting that because he's like in a fixed state, he's a man, that to them he's like weird. He's like, oh, well, why would you do that? I was like, oh, this perverse. I think that was a little funny. Telling a cis man, oh, the way you are is like not the norm. Something about that was very funny. In the beginning, I struggled a little with the writing because it was very, very clinical, very descriptive. It gives you a lot of information about the surrounding. Why is this? Why is that happening? How does this look? You know exactly who is in the room, who's breathing, who's... So it was a lot of information. So I needed time to just take in the information and just understand that this is the way the story is being told. I'm really enjoying it this far. It's very interesting, even though the main character is very much suffering at this point. So I finished The Left Hand of Darkness. The last third was very surprising because I was struggling a little bit in the beginning because it was like very clinical writing, very descriptive. It took a while to adjust to the writing. I thought it was very interesting what happened in the story. At the start of the story, the main character was annoying me. But then I found it interesting to look at things from his perspective. Because in the beginning, he was very much, he thought he was being open-minded, but he wasn't. He was actually starting to interact with people that are different than him. And then all of a sudden, he's asking questions. He's trying to understand. He's suffering. Things are not going like he wants them to. The more he was suffering, the more I thought his thoughts were interesting. So I don't know what that says about me, but I really like the journey he goes on. I really liked the other characters, the way the main character tries to understand them, but he makes mistakes. In the last part, he makes a connection. There's friendship, and there's sincerity, and there's true understanding. That last part was very touching. It wasn't a happy ending, but it was a very fitting ending. I'm gonna start with the Hobbit next, because I feel I've read two very much emotionally taxing books. I think the Hobbit will be a little bit of a reprieve, and then I'll see what I want to pick up next after that. I don't know if I'm watching the movies. 3 movies is a little bit absurd. I've been pondering all day, why are there 3 movies of a book that's tiny? So because The Hobbit was written decades before the Lord of the Rings was written, so I wonder about the quality of writing, and I think I'm just gonna read a few chapters before I go to bed, and try to finish it in upcoming days. It's the next morning and I'm 30% into The Hobbit and I'm really enjoying it. It's very cozy, but moments of tension. They're going on a journey, on an adventure, the writing. I completely forgot that Bilbo and Gollum met before, which is kind of the whole of the point of the Lord of the Rings. I completely forgot that part. It's very interesting to see them interact. The basic setup is very similar to Lord of the Rings. There's a mission. They need to go on a journey. It's an adventure. Bilbo or a hobbit gets robbed in going along. I think the addition of the dwarves, because there are like multiple dwarves with interesting personalities, and the singing, and I really like it. I really missed Gandalf, so it's really fun to see Gandalf in a story that I don't know. I think I'm gonna make myself some tea and I'm gonna read on and just make it a cozy reading day. I'm 80% into The Hobbit, and it's been a very cozy and fun and adventurous, and it reads like middle grade. So it's like very simple writing, very simple story. And I think that Bilbo, to me, is a more active character than Frodo was. He has an opinion, he likes things, he hates things, he interacts, he makes plans, he saves his friends. Bilbo is everything I wanted Frodo to be, but I know that Lord of the Rings is a different kind of story, and it was intentional for Frodo to be described in the way he was. If Bilbo was more present in the Lord of the Rings, then it would have been a little bit of a different story. But I realized that Frodo and Bilbo are different people. I'm gonna read the last 20%. While I was cleaning, I needed a break from The Hobbit. No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai. I started it and I finished it, and it's like a very sad story because it's based on an author. The author himself had a very tragic life, and he had like a very intense depression, and he attempted to do very dark things because he felt very disconnected from society, from people. He didn't understand how to make friendship. The character in No Longer Human is very much colored by the way the author saw his life, even though in No Longer Human it's a little bit of a fictional story. So a lot of things are not exactly how the author's life was. It's a fictional character, but it's the feelings, the motivations are colored by the author's life. We start with a child. He's a son of a well-to-do family in the late 19th century, early 20th century. There are bad things happening in his home, even though his family doesn't know. His personality and his mood is influenced by that. He doesn't know how to make friends. He doesn't know how to connect. He doesn't know how to belong. Continues to stumble through life, feeling disconnected, feeling depressed, feeling alone. That dark mood is throughout the story. He has a lot of he connects with people, but not on an emotional level. He doesn't know how to love someone. He doesn't know if someone can love him. He doesn't see himself as worthy. It's very sad. And also, if you know how the life of the author, how his life ended, was also very tragic. And the same is in this case for the character. Even though he keeps trying, things don't go well, and also he doesn't put in what is necessary. So it's like a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, even though I can 100% understand having trauma, having depression rule your entire life. It's like really hard to fight through that. So I can empathize with that. When it comes to the writing, you can clearly read that it's a translation. I wish there is a newer translation. Maybe I should have picked up the newer translation. So I wonder what the difference is, because I do feel like it can be a little bit clunky sometimes. The author has a very raw way of telling the story. So he's very honest. I'm glad I read this book, but I'm not sure I'm going to pick up more from this author because it really put me in a slump. It's like this book's really sad. So don't pick it up if you don't feel like you can handle it. Check out the trigger warnings list. I think I made a good decision sandwiching this book within The Hobbit. I'm done with the No Longer Human. Now I'm going to read the last part of the Hobbit. I might start Things Fall Apart after that, but I'll come back to update. I finished The Hobbit and I really liked it. I really like a little bit of a conflict situation, so the last part was very entertaining. I think the entire book was very fun and very simple, and I started Things Fall Apart, and Things Fall Apart so far is about a man, and he has a very difficult relationship with his father. He grew up in a little Nigerian town, and it is very important how people perceive you. It's very important when it comes to opportunities, connections, and his father was always someone who didn't do things. The main character thinks of his father as someone that is lazy, who doesn't do things, who just got into debt who didn't work hard enough, who just gave up. So he tried to model himself after completely the opposite of that. He tried to be very hardworking. He tried to take every chance that he can get. He aspired for success. He ends up having multiple wives and having a little bit of a yam farming situation, and he, in all intended purposes, is a very successful young man. Things start happening because he starts making choices based on his beliefs and what he thinks is right or wrong, and what he thinks the community thinks is right or wrong, and things start to go from bad to worse for him. I think it's very ironic that he has a fear that his son is going to be like his dad, a lazy person, someone who doesn't do right for the family and who doesn't make something of themselves, while he is making choices that are destabilizing his family, his community, his town. Also, on the other side, it's very painful to see how women are treated. The role of patriarchy, how it looks like when men think they are succeeding, how then the life of women is influenced. I'm very interested, and I really love the writing style. I love the way the story is told, even though I'm very saddened by the way the female characters are being treated. I'm gonna try to finish Things Fall Apart today. I'll probably start the Einstein intersection next by Samuel R. Delany. I don't think I mentioned this book. It was on my backlist of books, and it's a book that fits. It's a modern classic. It's been written in a certain time. It's by a very established author. I've read from Samuel R. Delany before, but short stories. Also, I've lived for years not having any social media. I watched the news, but I wasn't on Instagram, or I don't have a Facebook, and all of these social medias that people have and have had for a really long time. I didn't have. So being online, having social media now, and seeing live what's going on around the world, what's going on different continents, and all the pain and suffering that we are going through as a world. It's really hard because a lot of people around me are suffering. And even though I am not impacted directly, it's really hard to see people in different pockets of the world, people that I love, I care about, I communicate with often, that are suffering and are very much dealing with very intense situations. And I'm not good at comforting people. And I don't have an answer. I don't have a solution. I don't have a way out, or I can't influence the outcome. So it's really hard. But I think in being powerless, I have to find my way back to trying to do better for me and for the people around me. A few people have started very interesting projects and also have been inspired to do things for themselves, their families, and their communities. And I think I'm just in awe seeing humanity come together in a time where everything is destabilized. And I'm not just talking about in the West, because the things going on in the US are very intense all around the US, but also what's happening in South America, what's happening in Africa. It's really hard because I feel like the people in power at this moment are choosing money and are choosing greed and are choosing themselves. So it's really, really hard. But I really hope that we come out of this stronger. So I'm going to keep that hope in my heart. I will try to finish Things Fall Apart, and I will come back to tell you how that went. I'm anticipating that this book is going to be a 5-star because so far I'm really enjoying it. I finished the Einstein intersection, and I don't know if I even talked about what it's about. Einstein intersection is a book. It's a hard sci-fi book written by Samuel R. Delany, great author. In this story, he is tackling a lot of different things, but I think he's focusing on mythology, and specifically the myth of Orpheus. And it's not a retelling. I'll just talk about what the plot is about and what I thought the story was meant. So the plot is about, there's a character, he is living his life in a small town. There's a few people that he's connecting with. There's a community, and he has this huge loss. And you get a little bit of background story. These people have a lot of problems when it comes to reproduction. Everyone that is born, there's radiation. As a fact of the radiation, people that are born that are different, born with bodies or minds that are a little bit different than the norm. These people live in a post-apocalyptic world. When you read more, you understand that humans have left this post-apocalyptic, futuristic new Earth. Yeah, humans left. They died. They went to colonize other planets. They went to travel to other stars. There's no humans anymore on Earth. These people that I've been talking about are not humans. They are a new species that have similar bodies to humans. They inherit this Earth, this really hard landscape, radiation, Earth that is suffering, and they also inherit all the art, all the artifacts, all the stories that humans left behind. And our main character is very fascinated. He's a musician, and he's very much fascinated by art and by humans and how their mythology, their stories. And if you hear a story or you listen to a myth, if you don't know the context, the people, the time, if you don't have all this information, you're not going to understand the story. You're not going to understand the jokes. You're not going to understand the irony. All these things are very hard to pick up on if you're not familiar with the context. It was very powerful to write a story about people or non-people, people that think that they know the stories, but they don't understand the context. So then they are more than not getting the story wrong. That was very interesting. The story is very philosophical. This book it's beautifully written, very raw, makes you think, it makes you second guess, makes you want to research. I think the ending is also not what I expected, because you expect in this kind of story for it to have like simple ending, simple closure. The hero, he had a loss. He went on a journey for wisdom and understanding. He got to the place where he thought he was gonna get his answers or retrieve what was lost, and then there's an ending. I thought it was very interesting that this ending was so open. It just makes you feel empty, like, oh, this was just sad, and was there a way to resolve this? But then I look at it and I'm like, but was our main character intended to be a hero? I don't know if that's was the case, because he's not very much likable, the way he treats others. And I thought it was very interesting the way gender was represented in this story. Very fascinating story. This is not what I thought it was going to be about, but it was very interesting. So I definitely recommend people to read it. I also finished my last book that I wanted to tackle, The Blind Owl by Sadegh Hedayat. And this book was so interesting. I did not think that there was this old of a horror story, Persian horror story. That's what I'm going to call it. The book description says that it's a dark book, but I didn't think dark as in horrific. But this was just legit a horror story. The story starts with a man, and he has an encounter with a woman. And he's like, it's very poetic, very beautiful. He's like, oh, this woman is like this beautiful creature. And he's like using very poetic language. And then something tragic happens to her, and he makes a very disturbing decision. He makes the thing he does is not the direction that I thought this book was going to take. So I was very surprised, and I was like, oh, so we're going into legit horror here. There's a second timeline where you see what kind of life he had. I love this book, even though it was very horrific and very sad. The main character is very detestable. I'm happy that I picked up the new translation. Apparently, this book has been translated a few times. I've always been someone that really likes reading modern classics and also classic, but I find myself wanting to read something fun, light, and short, and that being most of my reading. I don't want that to take over, because I know that it's okay to engage with the text and just try to understand what it's about. And so I have to be a little bit more mindful when it comes to the books that I pick up. But I can also be okay with wanting just to read the newest fun popcorn read book. I'm going to call this vlog a reset vlog, not because I was doing cleaning and organizing and planning and all these kind of stuff that you usually see in a reset vlog. But I think it's because I'm resetting my reading for 2026. I want everything I read to be something that I enjoy, learn something from, and also that makes me understand my taste in books a little bit more. I read the 6 modern classics books that I intended to read, and I even read one more. The first book that I finished was Beloved by Toni Morrison. Beloved was very intense. It was about trauma, intergenerational trauma, slavery, the themes, the characters, the time setting, and also the world that those characters lived in. The terror, the horror, the angst, and also the life and death situations that they had to deal with, and the effects of those situations on the rest of their lives. This story is very sad, and that had a very deep impact on me. I didn't read anything for a while. I just couldn't process what was happening in the story, because I just felt like it was so intense and so heavy. And I think Beloved is a story that everyone should read. After that, I picked up The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Le Guin. And this book was a completely different tone. It was very cold, very descriptive and very much just explaining. And I thought it was very interesting. The themes are very interesting, a lot about identity and about gender and also about isolation. After that, I needed something light, so I picked up The Hobbit. The Hobbit was really fun. It's read way younger than what I expected, but it was like a simple story. Character goes on a journey, encounters obstacles, and happy ending. I read No Longer Human next. This book was so dark and so sad and so heavy. This main character had such a painful life, and he carried this cloud of depression over him his entire life. So it was really hard to read this book. It's a really short book, but it just feels like I read it for like a couple of months. For me, the gem of this reading vlog was Things Fall Apart. This book was so interesting. It has so much culture and so much effects of patriarchy, and also how women are perceived, the roles of women, how toxic masculinity is also damaging to men. And also I like the obstacles and the challenges the main character had to face. The ending was fitting for me when it comes to the story, because I feel like there was no other way for this to end. I think it was very interesting because it shows how external forces can disrupt communities, and how important cultural context is when it comes to behavior, when it comes to interpreting behavior. This book was a lot about understanding, empathizing, and trying to see what is morally the correct thing. And I think that this book is very much current when it comes to these times, because I feel like a lot of people don't know and don't want to investigate and don't want to come out of their little bubble. It was a very inspiring book, and I think I'm going to read more by the author. The sixth book I read was, I'm not sure if I read The Einstein Intersection or The Blind Owl first, but I'll start with The Blind Owl. The Blind Owl by Sadegh Hedayat. This book was not what I expected. I thought it was going to be a little bit of a historical story, maybe a little bit of poetry, but I didn't expect it to be horrific and painful and a little bit of a gothic element, haunting. I really loved it, and it's like nothing that I expected. I don't know if the other works by the author were translated, but I'm going to do a little bit of research and I'm going to try to find out, because I really enjoyed the writing style. And the last book is The Einstein Intersection by Osamu Delany, and this book was on my list for a really long time, but the title is so intimidating, because I thought, okay, Einstein, so people say that it's about relativity, the theory of relativity, and while I really enjoy hard sci-fi books, I don't know anything about it. I've only had like basic math, so anything beyond that is very complex, but I enjoy reading about it, especially in a fictional story. I was for a long time really intimidated to pick up The Einstein Intersection, and also because Osamu Delany is an amazing, well-known, renowned author. Picking it up, I didn't expect the tone. It was very much a little bit cheeky and very different, and he dove into topics and into themes that I didn't think that he would tackle. This main character was very interesting. He wanted to go on a journey to find answers, to change the situation that he was in. It's really interesting, the journey he goes on, the people he interacts with. I think this book is very hard to understand, because there are so much layers and so much ways of interpreting specific situations and also motivations. And I think I can reread it and see something else or have a new insight. I'm going to look into reading more from Samuel Delany, because I really like this book. A lot of these books, if I look back, were about identity, society, growth, cultural and historical context, human connection. I think I really value stories with these kind of topics or focus points, because I feel like we need to understand the past to go forward in our life and have a better future, but we can do it in a creative way, in a new way. And I think above all, human connection is very important for me in a story, whether it's about friendship, empathy, the effects of isolation, effects of oppression. I think humans are very fascinating to me, and I want to understand and also read about very different experiences and very different ways of looking at common situations. I'm happy I read those books, and I think it helped shape my 2026 reading year. Do you enjoy modern classics? Are there modern classics that you read that you think that I would like? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and bye.